Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Oxford University Press. It's a book that I've reviewed before, and it's a book which I believe is very, very important. It's this book here. We'll have a look at it in a minute. It's called Company Meetings and Resolutions, Law, Practice and Procedure. It's now in a third edition. It's been written by two people, Leslie Kosmin, Queen's Counsel, and Catherine Roberts. OUP are to be congratulated for taking the book on and actually publishing it regularly, because you do make our lives a great deal easier with the production of these works. They're relatively easy to use, and they should be of help not just to practitioners but also to unrepresented parties and people with without a legal qualification who are looking to get some indication of how to deal with company meetings and with resolutions that are being either sought or made. Elizabeth was the lead writer in this review, and she and I had a talk about it, and she came up with the title Company Meetings, the Definitive Guide for for lawyers and also company lawyers, now in a new third edition. Let's just have a look at the book first. There's a hardback. You can see it's quite a heavy book. I'm not sure what the cover is, mauve, purple, I don't know. There's the front anyway, and there's the spine. There's nothing on the back, you can see that. Now, it's quite heavy. It runs to something approaching 600 pages. The index at the back, which you can see here, is by paragraph numbering. It's quite a substantial index, and if we go right to the front of the index, there we go, I'll show you. It doesn't actually say, but it should say somewhere, but it doesn't. But actually the index is by paragraph numbering. If we get into the book, you can see the last page, got the paragraph numbering at the sides, and if I just go into the book a bit at the back, you can see the same thing, paragraph numbering at the sides, and occasionally you get footnoting. There's not too much footnoting. If we go to the front of the book, there's the front page. You can see there's the general information, then there's the actual details from OUP, then you've got the foreword to the third edition. It's always worth reading the foreword to see what's happened since the previous edition, and it sets out a number of things. The foreword written by David Richards. Now you've then got the preface to the third edition from the authors, of course, which is set out there. That's also worth reading too. Then you've got the contents section. You can see how it's structured with the various parts and it running all the way through. You should be able to find what you're looking for very quickly, and right at the end, of course, you've got various bits and pieces on commentaries concerning the legislation, which is towards the back. Now we've then got the table of cases, and after the table of cases you've got the table of statutes, which you can see there. Then after that we then get to the actual beginning of the book. You can see there's a mini index at the beginning, so you should, as I say, you should be able to spot things very quickly. You can see how the book runs. It's the heading at the top, then you've got the paragraph numbering at the sides and the little footnotes, and it runs all the way through. Some of the footnotes are bigger than others, and when you get to a different chapter it's on a new page, so that does make life a bit easier when you're trying to find things in the middle of the book. Is like that. So I say it's an important book, and one that many people will be familiar with. There are a number of books on the market about company meetings, but I think this is one of the best, having looked at them and got some idea of what's available. So what do we say? We say this: since the dawn of time, you might say, human beings, being the social animals that we are, have held meetings. Meetings to confer, connive, gossip, agree, disagree, dispute and argue. The main purpose of said meetings being presumably to make decisions or acquire or impart information. That's the theory. Sometimes it degenerates, but generally speaking that's what they're there for. Millennia later, of course, meetings still prevail as an important human institution, now governed by an extensive body of law, as exemplified by this now long-established legal text from the authors Leslie Kosmin, Queen's Counsel, and Catherine Roberts. It's now in a new third edition from OUP. Having written the first two editions, the authors have certainly built up what we think is a formidable reputation as leading experts in this field. They were invited by OUP to write this latest edition, and here it is. And as mentioned in the foreword by David Richards, meetings as such seem to have evolved from vestry meetings, not to mention proposed meetings on railway station platforms. He does refer to a Victorian painting exhibited at the Royal Academy in 1867 entitled "A Vestry Meeting, Something Wrong with the Accounts." Company meetings today, however, of whatever size and shape, are obviously in a different category, it is to be hoped. And I can remember when I first studied company law, remembering the pictures that I had seen, the proposed meeting on a railway station platform being one of the ones that certainly always stuck in the mind. Reflecting, of course, more recent developments, specifically those that have taken place in the past 6 years since the previous edition, that includes, of course, advances in technology, the main focus of this text is, as the authors have stated, the meetings of members and directors of solvent companies that are registered and incorporated in the UK under the Companies Act 2006 and its statutory predecessors. Unfortunately for the throngs of corporate lawyers advising clients on these and related matters, this book functions admirably as a reliable and useful guide to the law and practice of such meetings. And following an introductory chapter, which I showed you right at the beginning with the little index right at the beginning, on the concept of a meeting and quorum, virtually every pertinent aspect of company meetings is covered, including, to cite only a few examples, the annual general meeting, the role of the chairman, voting, members' rights, written resolutions, and minutes. And these are perhaps for some people boring and pompous and everything else, but they are fundamental requirements. Now, a notable feature of this text is the section on company communications, with special commentary on electronic communication, which features in the Companies Act 2006. And of course, the point that is being made here is that even before its enactment, a large number of public quoted companies with many thousands of members have taken active steps to encourage as many shareholders as possible to elect to receive their documentation in this way, rather than in a paper format through the postal system, substantially, of course, for reasons of cost saving. And that's happening across the board with everything that we do. And it's the future, it's going to be the way it goes. Obviously, the post office are losing revenue on this and everything else, but that is the way that we are moving. And for some, it's not popular at all, but the reality is that's what we have to face. It's also important to note the rights of a member to demand a document in hard copy, which is also actually given and protected under the Companies Act 2006. And of course, further discussion centres on certain perceived limitations on the use of modern technology for the proper conduct of company meetings. You can see all sorts of problems arising quite quickly, of course. Will virtual meetings ever replace physical meetings of shareholders? Probably not yet, it would appear, in view of the assertion by the authors that physical meetings continue to provide a valuable means of calling management to account for the stewardship and conduct of a company's affairs and of enabling shareholders to insist upon answers to legitimate questions. Of course, the word is transparency, and that is basically why we still have that system. I don't see it changing in the immediate future, but you never know what will happen in the longer term. Of course, the book we think is stimulating, it's readable, and it's authoritative. It's not a difficult book to read. The text is an invaluable guide, we think, to an often complicated subject, and should be required reading for every lawyer or advisor on the law, practice and procedures relating to company meetings and resolutions. and that's what you're getting. It's an important book in this area, and you should know about it in case there is the inevitable problem that something hasn't gone the way it should have gone. These things happen, and that's why the book is so helpful. The authors have endeavoured to state the law in its third edition as at the 31st of August 2019, and the book appeared later in 2019, and I'm recording it at the beginning of 2020. Let's just have a look, one last look at the book. There's the front of it. Heavy book, as I say, nice front cover. I like the colour, I have to say, it's a nice colour. And it's a good book. As I say, there is a lot. I'm just going to make it difficult for you to read this now. It's called Voting, Chapter 9. You can see there is a little bit, there's quite a lot of detail. You can see you've got the footnotes, you've got the paragraph numbering and everything else. But you do have the detail. But as I said to you, even though it looks on the face of it, oh, we've got section 341 of the Insolvency Act, for instance, mentioned there, all abbreviated. You get used to it quite quickly. You get used to the feel of, I mean, I found this with studying company. You get used to the feel of everything very quickly. And it's actually quite readable. So you don't need to be very highly qualified, in my view, to be able to understand what you're looking for. And as I say, cross-referring to what you've got in the body text with things like the index at the back should allow you to find what you're actually looking for, because the index is quite detailed. A very big thank you then to the two authors. I'd like to also thank OUP very much indeed for publishing the new edition. You make our lives a lot easier with this sort of work, and it's a great assistance to all of us that we know we have these books to count on. So thank you to all. Bye-bye.